Jason Jacobs was a 4-year letter winner for the Mustang football team and concluded his career as one of the most decorated players in program history. Jacobs played in 42 career games and was a 2-time first-team All-Conference honoree, including being named the 1998 NSIC Defensive Player of the Year. Jacobs was named first-team Daktronics All-Region in 1999 and twice was named Daktronics All-Region second team. The 1999 NSIC Glenn Galligan Award winner as the conference's top football senior student athlete, he was named second-team COSIDA Academic All-American in 1999 and twice was named first-team COSIDA Academic All-District. Jacobs continues to hold school records at Southwest, including tackles for loss with 58, while ranking second with 28 quarterback sacks and fifth in total tackles with 286. Jason and his wife, Molly, have 2 children and live in Victoria, Minnesota.
Please welcome the newest member of the Hall of Honor, Jason Jacobs.
Upon hearing the news from Kelly, I instantly started thinking about my time at Southwest State. It's one great memory after another. Just an unbelievable time in my life. I can honestly say that I thoroughly enjoyed my years at Southwest. So much so that when I was in college, my wife bought me a t-shirt. It had a picture of about an 80-year-old man sitting at a bar, staring at a half-full beer, and below it, it said, "You can't stay in college forever." I'm not sure what she was trying to tell me. Although I do believe, Dan, a couple of our conversations may have shed some light on that during my time here. I remember my recruiting visit to Marshall. It was a normal winter day in Marshall. Bitter cold, windy, snowing. Coach Jeffers at the time was recruiting me to play tight end. During my visit, I met with the defensive coordinator at the time, Coach Flowers, and he had saw my highlight tape, and he was adamant that I come down here to play defense. So much so that I remember him saying, "If you can't play defense here, you can play offense," which was kind of his way of saying, well, why don't you come here first, try out the defense. If that doesn't work for you, you can go back and play offense. You can play offense here. But I think looking back at that, he certainly led me in the right direction. I remember my first day of fall camp, just walking in and seeing all the current players and thinking to myself, wow, these guys are huge. Probably hard to believe it looking at me today, but I was really kind of a little pipsqueak at the time. And I thought to myself, I don't know if I can make it here. You know, am I going to be good enough to play? I remember my first meeting. It was a freshman meeting. There was 50 of us sitting in a room. And the coach came in, walked in, and said, look to your left, look to your right. When you're a senior, either you won't be here or they won't be here. Because only a third of incoming freshmen make it to play a senior, to be a senior in football. It's pretty eye-opening as a freshman, I guess. You never really thought of it quite that way. But it was really true. There was only about 15 of us my senior year. And it really is it really is an honest assessment of the attrition level in college football and a true testament not only to football players but any college athlete on just how difficult it is to play college athletics. Another memory that is forever etched in my mind was our endurance tests. There were 300-yard shuttles, and we always ran them in the old gym, which always seemed to be about 900 degrees in the middle of August. For those of you that haven't had the pleasure, they take cones, they set them up on the gymnasium floor, 25 yards apart. Down and back is one, which is 50 yards. You go down and back 6 times, 300 yards. You get a 2-minute break in between, and then you have to run it again, and they take the average of those times. If you've ever experienced or have done this before in your life, you know the lactic acid that will build up in your legs on that second one. And experiencing this for the first time is certainly a humbling and eye-opening experience. You see people running in a zigzag pattern. You see people puking in trash cans. You see people screaming out in pain. So it certainly was eye-opening for me. I was extremely nervous, not knowing quite what to expect. This was my first introduction to Pete Range, a wild, crazy, and fellow defensive lineman. Some of you may know him. He was a great friend and mentor to me in my first couple years at Southwest State, so I hope he doesn't mind me telling this story. I ended up in the same line as Pete Range, not knowing him at the time. He ran right before me, and I remember watching him finish his second 300, and he literally looked like he was swimming as he was running. His arms and legs were flailing like an upright turtle, and he's going like this, and he's running like this, and I mean, it's forever etched in my mind. I'll never forget that image of Pete running. I also remember my first day of putting on the pads. Keep in mind, this is after probably about a dozen football practices with no pads on, so by the time you actually put the pads on, you're really ready to go out there and hit somebody, even if they are on your same team. Every practice we had what we called individual time, where you'd break into individual groups. So the defensive lineman would go off with a defensive line coach, and the linebackers would go off with the linebackers coach, and so on and so on. That day we were working on the trap drill. And if you don't know what a trap is, the guy I played defensive line, so the offensive line across from me, they don't block you, and they're trying to influence you either run up the field or kind of look the other way so that the pulling guard can come knock your block off, hence the name trap, I guess. I remember being really energetic and wanted to prove what I could do, so I was all ready to go. And I remember and usually as part of the drill, they don't run the same play over and over, so you can just kind of play it and do that. They have different things where maybe the offensive lineman will double team you, or they'll try to scoop block you, and then they'll mix a trap in there just to make, to keep you honest. And I remember running up the field and completely misreading what I was doing. And before I knew what happened, Pete Range, another story about Pete, he was playing pulling guard, and he just decleated me, knocked me completely off my feet. And I remember lying on the ground in pain, trying not to act hurt, and he was standing over the top of me saying, "Welcome to college football." Well, it was quite the welcome, I guess. It's a good thing that I learned to play the trap a little bit better than that during my time. Excuse me. The one thing that I always come back to that made my experience so great at Southwest is the people, the relationships that I forged, not only with the guys I played with, but the coaches, the student trainers, the administration, the fellow students that I went to school with, many, many great people and great friends. It sounds so cliche once you've left the game and they say, "What do you miss most about it?" And people always say, "Well, it's the people, the camaraderie, it's just being around those guys." And the reality is, it's very true. I mean, that is what you miss about the game. You spend so much time with these people. They're really like they're an extension of your family. And I would be remiss today if I didn't mention some of these guys, as they were such a huge part of my success along the way. My presenter, Coach Lucier, who was the defensive line coach much of my time at Southwest. He was also the strength and conditioning coach. I was never the guy that was going to bench 400 pounds, run a 4.5 40, but he constantly pushed me to not only be bigger, faster, and stronger, but to work on my techniques. And during my time, I think I really became a technician, and that was that's what I worked to do. I had this really great story queued up about him, and I even apologized to him before this, and I said, "Hey, I'm going to tell this story about you, and I know it's not going to look great on you." And he had to set me straight. He's like, No. I wasn't the guy that was saying that you weren't going to be a good player. It was another guy. So that completely threw me off on my speech. So, so I guess he really was a good evaluator of talent. Obviously, Coach Jeffers and Coach Flowers for recruiting me and giving me the opportunity to play. Both were great coaches, very passionate, and always pushing me to do my best. Coach Flowers always had a saying among his many famous ones, and if you've ever been around him, he had a lot of famous sayings. He would ask people if you wanted to be the best. So he would say, "Do you want to be the best?" Everybody would obviously respond, "Yes." And after saying that about 4 or 5 times, he would end it by saying, "Well, then just don't give it lip service." And at the time, I never really gave much thought to it, but I mean, what a great message in terms of not only relevant for football, but in life in terms of, you're never going to be the best by just saying that you want to be the best. You need to go out there every day, work hard, get better at whatever you do, and that's the only way that you're ever going to get better. Undoubtedly, I'd like to give thanks to my teammates. I played with some great ones. For your sake, I won't sit up here and name all of them, but every one of them was instrumental to my success. Football is a team game, and certain positions or individuals can have great statistics, but it's not without the other 10 people on the field. So I really would like to thank them. Also, to my 2 favorite trainers, Laura and Patty, going through a football season can be pretty grueling. and I had my fair share of injuries. I spent many, many hours in the training room, and those guys would do anything to get me ready for a football game. And I think it's just great that they're still here doing their thing so many years later. Also to my parents, my family, my children, and anyone else that I may have forgotten, I had a great support network. There was always someone there whenever things got tough, constantly guiding me in the right direction. So there's no way I stand before you today without all of these great people that I just mentioned. I thank the committee for selecting me. I really, really appreciate the honor. Thank you.